What's up, Falcons Nation? It's your boy Jew coming at you with another Atlanta Falcons video. As always, Falcons Nation, rise up. In today's video, I would like to talk about the Atlanta Falcons defense and what we need from our Atlanta Falcons defense in this upcoming 2020 NFL season. But with that being said, if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you'll know when I've done Atlanta Falcons content. Hit that like button for your boy. I appreciate you guys continuing to tune into the channel. I appreciate all of you guys for continuing to share out this content on all the social media platforms out there. And I appreciate you guys continuing to help me grow the channel. Let's get this thing to 1K, 1,000 subscribers, so we can go ahead and start those live videos. I will be doing a giveaway once we get to 1,000 subscribers, but I appreciate every single one of you guys. Before I jump into the video, I just want to wish everyone a happy Memorial Day. To all the troops out there, we appreciate your sacrifice. We know that freedom isn't free. We thank you for protecting this great country. But with that being said, let's jump right into the video. So what do I expect from our Atlanta Falcons defense in this 2020 season? Or what do we need from our Atlanta Falcons in this 2020 season? Well, if you think back to when Dan Quinn first got here with the Atlanta Falcons about 5 years ago, the first thing that he preached about was the football, that we needed to protect the football and that we needed to take the football away. We needed to cause turnovers. We needed to force turnovers on the defensive side of the ball. One thing, if you notice, when he was in Seattle, one of the big things that the Seattle Seahawks did in that secondary was take the ball away. They did a good job of forcing fumbles, and they did a good job of intercepting passes, whether it was Richard Sherman, Earl Thomas, Cam Chancellor, and those boys. They did a good job of taking the football away from opposing teams. And I believe that that's the biggest thing with our Atlanta Falcons defense in this 2020 season. If we want to be Super Bowl contenders, if we want to make a deep playoff run, and if we want to have a good playoff record, a good regular season record and be one of those top seeds in the NFC, I really think that the biggest thing is the football. We need to force turnovers. We need to force fumbles. We need to get some sack strips, some sack fumbles. We need to get interceptions. We need to take advantage of taking the football away from the opposing offense so we can put our offense on shorter fields. I think we need to do a better job at giving our offense better field position. If you think about it, I don't believe that we need our Atlanta Falcons to be a top 10 defense or a top 15 defense when it comes to yardage. That would be great if we can be a top 10 to 15 defense in yardage, meaning limiting teams of how much yardage they get per game. But if you remember back to the 2016 season, we weren't a top 10 or 15 defense overall. We were like a 25th or 26th ranked defense if you go back and look at that season and look at the statistics. But in that 2016 season, our team did a great job of taking the football away on the defensive side of the ball. If you remember, that's when we still had Robert Alford here at the cornerback position. He was one of the most physical corners in the league. He did get a ton of penalties at times because he was so physical. But one thing that I loved about Robert Alford's game was he was one of those players that would go after the football and he would try to be a playmaker. He would go after interceptions. He would take chances. And, sometimes he guessed right. In the Super Bowl against Tom Brady, if you remember, he had that pick six, which was a huge play. And he almost had the game-sealing interception when he undercut a pass that was intended for Julian Edelman that ended up flying up in the air. And it ended up becoming a miracle catch by Julian Edelman when all three of the players, Robert Alford, Keanu Neal, and Ricardo Allen, all dove for the football. And it was just a spectacular catch by Julian Edelman. But one thing I loved about Robert Alford was he was a playmaker. And also in that season in 2016, Keanu Neal did a great job of forcing fumbles. He had that big hit on Willie Snead against the Saints late in the season, and where he crushed them and caused a forced fumble. And I believe in that year, Keanu Neal was one of the best players at forcing fumbles in the NFL. So if you remember back to that season, we had a ton of players that played big roles in causing turnovers for our defense. Deion Jones, I could vividly remember him having 2 pick sixes in 2016, one against Drew Brees in New Orleans. I believe it was a Monday Night Football game where he intercepted a pass on the goal line and took it back like 85 yards for a touchdown. That was Deion Jones' rookie season, him and Keanu Neal. Also, I remember vividly, later in that season, we went to LA. We played the LA Rams, and Deion Jones also intercepted a pass in that game and took it back for a touchdown. And also in that game, Vic Beasley had a strip sack fumble where he ran back for a touchdown. So in that season, the turnovers were coming in bunches. The team did a good job of not only forcing turnovers, but also returning some of those turnovers for touchdowns and turning those turnovers into points right away for our team. Also, they put Matt Ryan in that high potent offense as Kyle Shanahan was our offensive coordinator. They did a good job of helping Matt Ryan in the offense by putting us on short fields and allowing us to score touchdowns very quickly. That season, we were one of the best teams or at averaging over 30 points a game. We had a very high potent offense. That's the year we had Taylor Gabriel, Mohamed Sanu, Julio Jones, Tevin Coleman, Devontae Freeman and those guys, Austin Hooper. That year we had a very high potent offense, and I feel like we could do the same exact thing this year, but we need our defense to revert back to its old ways and cause turnovers. We definitely need more interceptions, and I do believe with the acquisition in the draft of AJ Terrell, I do think he's one of those Robert Alford type players when it comes to he's opportunistic. He looks for the football. He's very aggressive, and he makes attempts at going for interceptions. He don't just try to bat down footballs, but when he when he intercepts a pass, he turns into an offensive player. If you remember when he was at Clemson in that national championship game, I believe it was against Alabama, he scored the first points of that game by basically picking off a pass and taking it back to the house. It kind of reminded me of the play that Robert Alford had in the Super Bowl against Tom Brady. So I do think that AJ Terrell is definitely an opportunistic corner, can definitely be a lockdown type corner. He has all the attributes that a Robert Alford had for his speed. But one thing that he has over a Robert Alford is he's taller and he's rangy, very long arms, rangy, tall. And Robert Alford was a shorter cornerback, like at 5'10", 5'9", where I think AJ Terrell goes about 6'1" or 6'2". So he's one of the taller, physical, like a Richard Sherman type cornerback. So I definitely think that AJ Terrell is going to shock a lot of people. And I do think that he was the right draft pick to bring in AJ Terrell. I think he was the right corner to go after because of his attributes and because of his aggressiveness, not only of going after the football, but his ability to be able to tackle out on the edges. He does a great job of being physical and making one-on-one tackles against wide receivers and against running backs. Now, another thing that I think our Atlanta Falcons must be better at in the 2020 season is making tackles in the open field. We must be better at making tackles. Last season, we gave up way too many big plays and explosive plays because of missed tackles. If you remember back to the game when we played the Titans, I can remember vividly the game against the Titans where AJ Brown, the receiver for the Titans, he had a catch across the middle. It was like a post pattern, and Desmond Trufant took a bad angle, and all of the players that were out there in space took bad angles, and he was able to catch a post pattern, turn it upfield, and take it to the house. And that was the game that Marcus Mariota basically looked like a Hall of Famer against our defense. He really made them look bad. I believe AJ Brown had over almost 200 yards receiving on us that game and 2 touchdowns. It was an abomination of how bad that defense played. Our secondary played in that game, and how bad did our defense played as a whole, because not only did we get embarrassed on the back end, but on the front end, we had no pressure on Marcus Mariota in that game. So he was able to sit back, sit pretty in the pocket, and deliver the football all game long without any pressure in his face. And to me, we did a poor job of tackling in that game. Too many receivers were catching balls and running down the field open. Even when they did catch the football, guys were taking terrible angles. So I think we got to do a better job this season of when a guy catches the football, we need guys to rally to the football. I think our team has done a great job of bringing in athletic players that can run sideline to sideline, like a Deion Buchanan that we recently brought in from the Arizona Cardinals. I also think Deion Jones, Foye Oluokun on that second level. Those guys are good sideline to sideline players. Ricardo Allen, Keanu Neal, those guys are very good tacklers. So I do really hope that Keanu Neal can get back healthy and he can have that same role that he played like a Cam Chancellor in Seattle, where he can play that box safety role. I do think that Ricardo Allen did a good job last season of filling in and playing that box safety role and allowing KZ to play that free safety role where he can roam and use his athleticism to be a ball hawk. But I do think we have a ton of depth on this team. On the defensive line, I really do think that we're going to be very stout up front. I do think that we did a great job at putting this defense together, especially the defensive line. I really think that the front office have done a good job of bringing in X-Factor type players like Dante Fowler, who I do believe will have over 10 sacks this season. Them bringing in Charles Harris, I think is going to be a sleeper. He's the dark horse on this team, which I think Charles Harris could be one of those guys that get 10 sacks and shock a lot of people. And I know Tat McKinley, he's always a player that you have to reckon with. He's a very physical and aggressive player, but we need him to put it together in this upcoming 2020 season. We need Tat McKinley to put his best foot forward this season for our team and prove to everybody why he was a #1 draft pick or a first round pick in 2017. Him and Charles Harris both were guys that were drafted in the first round, and they're two guys that both have a lot to prove. So we need both of those guys to come in and step up and, be the players that we know they can possibly be. But with that being said, John Cominsky is another guy that I really think that can come in and shock a lot of people. I think he's going to come in and play that Adrian Claiborne, Jack Crawford role, where you can play him on the inside and on the outside because of his athleticism and because of his smarts and his motor. He plays with a very high motor. I think John Cominsky is going to have a pretty good season, and I think he's going to shock a lot of people. So it's a lot of guys on this team, especially on the defensive line, that can have breakout seasons. Marlon Davidson being brought in to pair with Grady Jarrett, I really think that that's going to be a dynamic duo. I really think that Grady Jarrett could possibly have double-digit sacks because of Marlon Davidson's arrival to the team. Marlon Davidson is one of those guys that's also just like a John Cominsky, that he's very versatile. You can use him on the outside at the defensive end role, or you can use him inside as a nose tackle or a 3-tech. And pairing him with Grady Jarrett, I really think those guys are going to wreak havoc. I really think that they're going to cause a lot of trouble, especially for pocket passers like Tom Brady and Drew Brees in the division, and even Teddy Bridgewater. Those guys are really pure pocket quarterbacks, and I really think that they're going to create a lot of havoc because those guys are not going to be able to step up in the pocket. Those guys are going to do a good job of pushing the pocket and do a good job of penetrating in the backfield. I really think that our defense, as far as our run defense, is going to be very improved because of those guys being able to penetrate in the backfield and use their short area quickness to take advantage of those guards in the league. Because Grady Jarrett and Marlon Davidson, I believe, could be very good players on the inside. And I already know that Grady Jarrett is an elite nose tackle or 3-tech or a defensive lineman in general. He did make the Pro Bowl last year and could have possibly had 10 sacks last year if it wasn't for some of the bad calls where they took some of Grady Jarrett's sacks away. But he still had a ton of pressures, even though he was being double teamed pretty much every single game. Grady Jarrett did a great job of splitting double teams, using his short area quickness, using his low center of gravity, with him being one of the smaller nose tackles in the game, like an Aaron Donald. To me, he uses his leverage very well, and I think Marlon Davidson is going to be one of those players that's going to do the same, and also he can learn right up under Grady Jarrett and become, Grady Jarrett could become his mentor and teach Marlon Davidson how to be a pro. But one thing that I love about Marlon Davidson and Grady Jarrett and Dante Fowler and all of those guys, John Cominsky, they all have played with a nasty persona. They're very nasty players, very aggressive players. They're not going to sit back. They're not going to get pushed off the football. Even on some plays, they may not win every play, but they're going to do a good job of giving a full effort. They're not going to give up on plays like we had last season where it looked like players were just being pushed around. Those guys are very physical and very aggressive type players, very nasty players. So I really think that our defense is going to have a nastier edge this season because of the guys that's been added to the team. I really could see us having a big season for our sacks and for our turnovers. But the number one thing for this defense for us to revert or get back to the Super Bowl and have a deep playoff run will be turnovers. We must get turnovers. It must be about the football. The coaches, Raheem Morris, Jeff Albrecht, they need to teach these guys how to one guy go for the tackle, one guy go in for the strip. If someone is going to make the tackle, the second or third guy in to make that tackle needs to go in for the football and try to strip the ball away. If the guy's already engaged with a player, most of the times players are they have the ball sometimes out there where you can try to make an attempt to snatch the ball out of their arms. So we need to do a better job at trying to strip players. One thing I loved about the Chicago Bears years ago when they had Brian Urlacher and Peanut Tillman, those guys were very good. Lance Briggs, those guys were very good at going in and stripping the ball away from offensive players. One guy would go in for the tackle, the other guy would go in and try to strip the ball away because they know most of the times players are trying to brace for the fall, or most of the guys are just thinking automatically they're fighting for extra yardage and they're not thinking that someone is coming in to try to rip the ball out of their hands. Most of the times players assume that they're going to get gang tackled and no one's going to try to strip the ball out of their hands. So we have to be better at going in and trying to pry the ball out of someone's hand. But with that being said, this being your boy Jew, you guys let me know what you think about the video. Like I said, I really expect big things from our defense this year. I really think that if we can take the football away, we definitely could be one of the teams that could represent the NFC in the Super Bowl and make a deep playoff run. But we have to take the football away. We can't expect Matt Ryan in this offense to go 80-plus yards or 70 yards every single offensive possession. We have to give these guys a chance to be on the short field or get the ball in the red zone, whether it's us taking the ball away and scoring a touchdown as far as the defense, or whether it's taking the ball away on our side of the on their side of the field, so we can give Matt Ryan and that offense, that potent offense, a chance to put up points quick. But with that being said, this been your boy Jew. I'll holler at you guys in the next video. As always, before you leave the channel, please hit that subscribe button, hit that like button for your boy. And as always, Falcons Nation, rise up. Peace, and I'll holler at you guys.